Here we are again, old school law. I am Dantron, 69K, back with another adventure. Here with my co-pilot, Wolfman.
What's up, everybody?
Yeah, so I'm super excited about this one because we're gonna go into something that's a little near and dear to both of our hearts. We've grown in in this whole situation of retro gaming. It's kind of bled in and seeped into every part of our being since we were little, like way back. So, you start off, you remember how it is. Well, if you're old like us, you start off some video games, you're like, oh man, these are so cool. Then you get them at home, you're like, oh man, these are even better. And then it just kind of escalates, thinking you're never going to own arcade machines. We're never going to own all these consoles. We're never going to. But then as you get older, you start realizing that it's kind of tangible. Like I might be able to have some of these things and keep them in my own house. This is going to be one of those episodes where we're going to talk about what we've seen, what we've learned over time, and the current state of retro collecting in this environment as we sit. There's ebbs and flows, there's ups and downs through all of this, but in this season that we're in right now, there's a few things that we might be able to help some of you out there that are just getting into this, or you've been in this and you're wondering about getting back into it. And so I think that's just going to be a good laying the foundation of what this conversation is going to be. So come again, hang out with us on the couch, as it were, as friends, as we just talk games. What do you got, Wolfman?
Yeah, I mean, you said everything that I would have said for sure. I kind of look at this episode as a Cliff Notes version of retro game collecting, which includes nomenclature or vernacular, all sorts of uh, tips and guidelines. And, you know, right here sitting down is Dantron and myself. We have probably over 70 plus years. You trying to riz me up
That's it.
of gaming and collecting experience, 70 plus between both of us. So we've seen a lot over those 70 collective years, and we have a lot of pearls of wisdom that we could give to the community. And I think, like you said, Dan, that's what this episode is really going to entail. It's to help all of the novice people or the people that are wanting to get into retro collecting due to all of the crazy things going on right now in the video game industry. And even for, veterans, you might pick up a tip or a technique or something that you didn't know before. So it's going to be a fun episode.
It's all about picking up those techniques. Always be willing to learn. That's the most important part.
That's right.
Nimble fingers. All right. So Wolf, so do we want
Yeah.
to we kind of talked about, what's the scope and all that kind of stuff. So what would you say if somebody's really starting to get into this? What would be the first thing that you would want to start, really wrapping your brain around before you just get into this freaking sandbox of collecting retro consoles?
Right. So you hit the nail on the head when you said scope. It's too big of a hobby just to say I'm going to get into it and I'm going to try to collect everything. That would be the biggest mistake you can make unless you're Jeff Bezos or Elon Musk, and money is no object, right? But for the layman person that's getting into the hobby, you want to, I think, really go back to your childhood or go back to your favorite video game memories and really try to collect for one or two systems that are near and dear to your heart. I think to start, I think that's a good way to kind of narrow your focus because the video game or retro gaming industry is way too broad. So you need to really narrow, I think, that search unless unless you're Scrooge McDuck and you're diving into gold coins and you could just pick up anything and everything that you see and you don't care.
Yeah, I 100% agree. It's kind of like I liken it to somebody who just bought a house and they're trying to remodel. If you try and do everything and you keep the scope too broad, then you'll never complete one thing well, right? You'll end up getting
Mm-hmm.
half done and be like, this is too expensive. So it really kind of has to be planned out. Think of it also like a map, right? You got to know where you're heading. What type of scope? Like what's the main thing that you're looking to create? Like for instance, what type of collector are you wanting to be, right? So we're talking about like the difference of completionist, which is someone that, let's just say you want to have every single game for a system. N64
Mhm.
is probably going to be one of the easiest ones to try and do that. But anyways, well, not necessarily. There's some crazy games in that one too, but it's a small library, easier to get a hold of. But let's just say that. All right. So you want to be a completionist. I just want every N64 game. So be it. All right. Or are you one that's maybe along the lines of just enjoyment? Like you just, or something with nostalgia or your memories, right? So it's like, this is a game that I remember seeing my buddy play, and I really wanted, I remember playing it a bit, but I never really got a chance to beat it, but I've always thought about it, and here it is 30 years later, and I'm still thinking about it. Are you going to be that kind of a collector? So again, that goes into scope again. So it just depends, because people are all over the place. And then are you going to try and use it as like are you going to be an investment collector? That's another type of thing to
Mm.
think of. For me, that just seems foreign to me. I've
Mhm.
never been that type of person. Those of you that have known me know, and I've said it many a time, that I own to preserve, so that there's a piece of me in all of these things, right? We can't take it with us. So someday I'm going to be gone. So these things are going to pass down to my kids or to somebody else that's going to appreciate them and kind of, keep it going. That's what it's for. Um, because you can't take it with you. So what do you got on scope, Wolfman?
Oh, wow. You really brought up something I didn't even think about, and that's the investment collecting aspect. Just a quick story. I used to be part of a forum back in the day called Nintendo Age. It has since become defunct, and it was for hardcore NES collectors. And I was never friends with this guy, but there was a guy who had a handle. His name was Bronty, Bronty. And he, I know this is going to sound absurd, would only collect sealed
Oh,
Nintendo games.
yikes.
Yes. So I mean, no, like to me, you mentioned foreign. To me, that didn't make sense even way back then because the whole fun for me collecting the Nintendo set was being able to put it into my Nintendo machine and play the games. The games
Exactly.
that I remember playing when I was a kid or going to a friend's house and playing. So, yes, you do have people that just collect sealed. You have people that only collect graded games, games that they send off to get a grade from these really like shyster companies like WADA, that have been, deemed as a fraudulent company. And so you got
Agreed.
all different types of collectors, right? So, I think Dan's right, is part of the scope. What are you collecting for? Are you trying to get a whole set? You trying to get your favorite games that you remember playing? You trying to get sealed games? Trying to get graded games? So you need to really figure out what your narrowed scope is when you get into this hobby.
Yeah, it's because again, you guys can get lost. You can easily get lost in this whole world of retro collecting. Like, what is your
Oh yeah.
motivation? Really, it has to come down to, what is your motivation? Is it to
Oh yeah.
show off, or is it to do something else? Because those are all, I guess, viable options, like using it as an investment, being a collector just to show your friends all this cool stuff that you got. Or, if you just, not one's better than the other. These are all valid ways of looking at it. So, Wolf, what else do we got? We just talked about scope.
Right. And I just so the audience knows, both of us, we could tell them what we are. And, both Dan and myself, we're the type of collectors that at any given time, I have somewhere between 10 and 20 retro systems that are hooked up to various TVs or screens in my house that I could go and put in those old school games and play them. That's what matters most to me. Yes, I have a few things that might be sealed that I got lucky getting down the line, but for the most part, everything is open. I could get to it and I could play it, and that's the type of collector I am.
Yeah, I'm that way too. Sorry, I might catch some flack for this, but you know what? I don't care. This is my game. I bought it. But I got a sealed Killer Instinct on Super Nintendo. And the first thing I did,
Ooh.
opened it up to listen to the killer cuts. I got it, that was like, I don't know, 15, maybe 16 years ago, somewhere. What, 25? No, it was before that. Jeez. No, it was probably more like 20 years ago now. But uh,
Mhm,
but yeah, I got it. Immediately opened it up. That's how I am. I am not a
mhm,
CIB like fully sealed. I mean, sealed new condition collector. Again, that's not my style. Like again, that's something for somebody, but it's not an investment for me. I am a nostalgia collector. I want to collect things that I will play and that I have, that I've seen played or that hold a special place in my heart. And it's not just console games. It's like arcade machines. I have a few. It's all of those things. It's the memory. So, and I've said this before in one of our past podcasts, is it's the memory that the thing unlocks. The games are
mhm.
great, but it's the memory that is triggered with it. It's almost the key to a memory or a flashback to me as the past. And I remember sitting on the floor of one of my soccer buddy Daniel Flagg's house playing pro wrestling, right? So it's those parts that I grab a game and I go, oh man, I remember when. That's the type of collector I am. So if that helps anybody kind of get where I'm coming from or what I am. So cool.
Yeah. So let's kind of move on to the next like facet of this really unique hobby, and that is and is what type of research are you going to do to make really good choices and sound investments, or not investments, purchases, so it makes sense for you and your hobby. And there's a lot of ways to attack this as far as research goes. um, Dan, any ideas on what you do when you are honing in on, say, like maybe something for your Neo Geo
Oh
system?
my gosh. Yeah, I only have one kidney left. No, I'm just joking. So I would say that's the first thing that I look at is budget before anything else.
Right.
I look at budget and I look at what's within my budget. Like, so for me, we talk about it like making game lists. We've talked about that in the past. I think we're going to cover that later, but making a game list. I have one right on my phone, a living game list. So a list of games for every system that I'm thinking that's just in my mind right now that I would look for. So as I'm, just at a random spot, I can look at that and go, all right, this game, what's my budget? And it's easy for me to process. So, but in doing so, I click on a few things. One I'm going to say is price charting. That's
Mm,
that's one. I look at price charting. They're a little high a lot of times, but the market is so freaking crazy.
yeah.
um, and then you can also go to eBay and look at past ones that have been sold. Be careful on the ones that are available because they like to drive market value up more than it is. So I will tell you on eBay, you're usually going to find stuff that's usually about 20 to 30% above actual market. And if for me,
Mhm.
I try and look at things for if I can get it right at market, I'm okay with that. I would love to get it a little under market, but if it comes to at market, I can do at market. But the added like where they're trying to bloat market, I'm not about that
Right.
life. So what about you, Wolfman? Where are you searching?
Yeah, so that, I mean, that's great. I mean, and eBay, you got to be careful with that, like Dan said, because really you could put anything on eBay. You could ask for whatever you want. I've seen ridiculous things. I've seen people put games up and they want $1,000 for a game where everybody and their mother knows the game is $200, but
Yeah.
because of the condition or what they value their game at, that's what they have it on there as. So you got to be smart, you got to be savvy. eBay, like completed purchases or past purchases, the
Mhm.
past 60 days, if you average, it kind of gives you an idea at what the going rate of that game is. Um, I have a app on my phone that I use that keeps everything kind of consolidated, and it gives you an aggregate kind of average of what a game is going for, and that's called GameEye,
Mm.
GameEye. It's a free download. It's awesome. It keeps everything nice and tidy, and I love it. I mean, so I use that. I use price charting too, eBay past purchases. Those are probably some big ones for me as far
Yeah.
as research.
Yeah, exactly. And so there's a thing though, like what are some of the places, Wolfman, that you like to go though, if you're if you're at a, if you've already discovered kind of around what you want to play, what are some of the go-to
Right.
spots for you for looking for retro games?
Right. So that's tough, right? So it depends on what state you live in, where you at. I mean, you got your game galleries, you got your game stops, you got, all of your big time brick and mortar stores where you're going to pay absolute, market value for that type of stuff. See, the best places I think to go for retro games would be flea markets, yard sales, Facebook Marketplace, estate sales, like, and this is where, like, a collector like myself, I cleaned up years ago. 20, 25 years ago, you didn't have everybody that had a cell phone in their hand that had game charting, and they say, hold on a second, whoa, you picked up Chrono Trigger? Well, what's that? I'm going to put it into game charting and find out how much it is. People that sold games, they wanted to get rid of them. It was junk. It was taking up room in their house. So you could get games at ridiculous prices. People are practically giving them away. Things are a little different today. I think it's harder to find good scores. Um, they're out there, but I think it's become way more difficult to get really good deals or to find like a Chrono Trigger for $5 at a flea market or yard sale. I think those days are far gone.
Yeah, that sucks too, because I think I actually hit my mute on my mic for a little bit, so I might have spoke and then didn't hear anything, but maybe I did. Whatever, we do it live. Okay,
Yeah.
so yeah, I would say there's not a lot of yard sales or anything like that around where I live, sadly. But yeah, back in the day is where you would find the deals. Nowadays, you're not buying for deals. Like there's none of that. Like there's sometimes people are still going to, like Goodwill, thinking they're gonna find deals, or
Right.
thrift stores. They're not. I mean, like there are people that make a living off of just doing their rounds. So anything good is picked over, especially where I live.
Right.
But you said like Marketplace is great. Offer Up is great to still do. But something I want to point out is they all take time. All of these things that we're talking about, going to these places, doing these things, doing this kind of research, it's all time. So how much time do you have? Are you going to do it within the little cracks of your life, or are you going to take like full days and really just hit it, not knowing what you're going to get? So
That's true. That's really true. Um, it's just a shame. It's my goodness. I mean, 15 years ago, I mean, you had video games everywhere, you know, and it's just people now know because of, cell phones and having that information at their fingertips. They know how much stuff is worth, and it's just harder to get a deal today than it was 15 or 20 years ago.
part of the problem too is YouTubers.
Yep.
Sadly, I mean everybody knows like this is the form of communication that everybody's a part of. And if you're into retro games, you're watching somebody on YouTube or listen to something on Spotify or Instagram and that stuff. I mean, a lot of people know. There's a lot more knowledge out there now. I think there's knowledge and motivation in I think in a different way than what I'm used to back in the day. Now it's treated more like a cold business, whereas when I was doing it, it was more of a culture. It was
Mm,
more of you were just, like gamer nowadays means something kind of weird, but back in the day, you just liked video games. You'd have a group of friends of yours that you guys just liked video games. It wasn't a title that you would wear. Nowadays, it's a title, and it's more like an industry now too. Like, hey, I collect and resell retro video games. Like, so that whole thing wasn't a thing back in the day. It just didn't exist. So now we have to deal with that. And I mean, that's just, I don't know, that's just part of it.
boy, you brought up a great point, and somebody in your neck of the woods is a big contributor to inflating game prices, and that's Metal Jesus. Um, he's got a YouTube show and he does like these hidden gem stuff, and he's showing his PSP collection, and he's like, well, this is a hidden gem. And we're like, angry video game nerd would do a video on a shitty game like Silver Surfer that wasn't worth like the sweat off your behind. And then he puts together a show, and then all of a sudden you're looking and the game spiked because of
Yeah.
these influencers or YouTubers when you know the game is a bad game, and and now all of a sudden the demand has gone up.
Yeah, and I'll say to their defense, I mean, I don't think they're not meaning to drive markets up like that. They're not that type of people.
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely.
Metal Jesus is great. He's very authentic and he comes across I haven't met him personally, but I know that he just comes across as very genuine and authentic and a nice guy. So it's not necessarily their fault, but because this is how we consume media now, this is the trade-off, right? They bring up something good because it's great content for them and other people buy it up, and then it drives the market. It just does. But then you just got to wait. And then how much do you want this terrible game? Do I need to have Silver Surfer? No. I can add it to my list and then just pick it up, in another 3 or 4 months when the price on that one goes back down. The problem is there are certain good games that the price doesn't necessarily drop anymore. That's something
Mm,
that we're fighting now too, is
hmm.
with the death and demise of physical media in newer modern consoles. It has how should I put it? It has made us as gamers, especially old school gamers and collectors, realize that the amount of old school physical media is finite now, right? It is what it is. It's not expanding anymore. This is it. Like there's a few little
Yeah.
physical games that's coming out for newer consoles, but really it threw into the shocking realization that this is the reality that we're now in. Oh shoot, how many copies of if you're going for a full NES set, how many copies of what is it? The what is the sports game? The stadium events. How many
Yeah.
stadium events are out there now? If you're going for that, how many copies of the sculptor's cut on
N64.
N64? How many
Yeah.
are out there? It shocks people because they're like, "Oh shoot, you're right." I mean, like, and it was always a fact back then, but this, especially with the way the Switch 2 when it came out, and now they're saying they were gonna have physical, but it's now kind of they're like, "Yeah, no, physical is not there. It's all gonna go digital." And that right there was the catalyst that I think has drove the
Yeah.
market to spike, and I really don't see it ever dropping to where it was in the past. I don't think it's ever gonna go back down, even the way as low as it was before just before COVID. As soon as COVID hit, the market's like spiked, but then it dropped a little bit coming out of COVID when everybody was going back to work and stuff. But now this boom hit, and now it's jumped up, and I don't think it's going to drop back down there anymore, which is sad. But I mean, I understand it.
Sure. Sure, definitely. And I know, Dan, you mentioned something about lists. I just wanted to mention something about that. That's important too. So if you're getting into the hobby and say I live in Pennsylvania and Dan lives in Washington State, those are two very different regions. One is East Coast, one is West Coast. Um, and Dan is in a great state because I believe that's like the headquarters for Nintendo and a lot of other gaming companies. And
Microsoft.
oh my goodness, yeah. I mean, I know Washington State's like a haven for video game companies, and it's really a good idea to get those lists. And if you have good friends that you could share those lists with that live in other states, then they can keep an eye out for you for your stuff when they're out going to stores and flea markets and stuff. And it just kind of it expands your avenue or your way to get these games now. If you have good lists, and I'm not talking giving somebody like the Dead Sea Scrolls.
Right.
Nobody's going to look through 25 pages for your list. But if you have a consolidated list of some of the main things that you're looking for, and I know Dan has given me his list, and I have given some things that I've wanted to some friends, and it's just a great way to kind of help you get these items because it's hard to get this stuff. Based on what you said, Dan, it's just a finite amount of it. The demand is really high right now. Prices are through the roof, and it's really tough. People don't want to sell their stuff, man.
Yeah,
They
and
want to hold on to it.
branching out and using other avenues to get into different markets is very, very important for this. I will tell you, the East Coast market, East Coast and like Midwest, the absolute best market for getting games. If you ever want to test that theory, start looking through eBay or any of the stuff like that where you buy games, like start searching games and find out where their original location is. It's all going to be majority of the time Midwest or East Coast. Every once in a while you'll find something California, Texas, but majority of the time it's Midwest and East Coast. So for me to get over there and get into that, if that's the market I need to tap into if I want to look for some of those weird things. Dude, I almost picked up Einhander just today.
Oh,
Just
no
today.
way.
I almost picked up Einhander. It's one that's been on my list, but
Oh,
it's bouncing a little bit too high for me. I'm not ready to pull the
okay.
trigger on that one, but I have never seen that one available in my market.
Really?
Never. I have never seen it available for sale, and I've been around for a long time.
Yes,
So
you have.
that's one of those ones. It's like,
Interesting.
how much do I want to risk on never seeing it again? And then I'm like, but
Yeah.
because I got friends all over the, sorry, you guys, you know what? I'm going to tell you, those 6 of you that are out there listening right now and watching this, the, be nice, make friends. People will help you in this if you know, are just a normal dude. Like that's it. Just be a normal dude or a normal female or whoever you are. It doesn't matter, not gender specific. I don't want to run down that rabbit hole, but you know what I'm saying? Just be genuine, just be branch out. Say hi to people. Be nice.
Hmm.
You just be there are people out there like you. I guarantee it. People like you that will be like, oh yeah, you know, I'm looking for this and this too. Oh cool, I have 4 of those. Sorry, that's like me. I have multiple copies of random stuff. It's just crazy. But anyways, that being said, I mean, so Wolfman, have you ever gone down the rabbit hole of trying to barter some of your games away for other games?
So you mean like trade?
Yeah.
Um, maybe a couple times. Can remember like a Facebook Marketplace trade or two that I've done. Typically, it's hard to pry stuff from my dead cold hands. I have this grasp on my stuff. Um, it could be fun to trade. Um, I, you know, I, it, it's not something that I have a lot of experience with. I don't typically do a lot of trades per se, but I do like what you were saying about the networking thing. And I know listening to you, I listen very carefully to what you say and how you have been talking to, that guy that owns the video game store, and you've become, a little bit more friendly with that person, and that person might now be looking out for things that you want. And that's networking, and that's important. And I did it for a friend. His name's Wales. He gave me a list of stuff. I bought him 5 or 6 hockey games that he wanted. And they know me at this local retro store, and they gave me, like, they said, all right, Dan, for every every 3 PS4 games you get, we're going to give you one for free. And
Hmm.
typically their margins are tight
Yeah.
in brick and mortar stores. They don't have a lot of room to really cut you great deals because they got electricity, they're paying for employees, so they're trying to make as much as they can. But if you're nice to people, you're nice to managers, you're nice to people that own these stores, they will look out for you. And I'll bring up Wales again. He made a friend in a guy that owns a retro store in Florida, and he told the owner, "Hey, look, I'm looking for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Hyperstone Heist, complete in case or box for Genesis," which is a hard game to get. It's kind of, I don't
Pricey.
want to say super rare, but it's pricey. A lot of people don't want to spend $150, $200 on a Genesis game. And the guy called him up and said, "Hey, Wales, we got it here." And that's great. That's networking. That's just being nice. Manager went out of his way, held the game for him. Wales came over, got it, and it's now in his collection. So I don't know. I think you're right, Dan. I think being nice, and I'm not saying you got to be asshole buddies with everybody, but if you're nice to people and they know you're collecting and you're giving them business, they tend to, you know, scratch your back every once in a while when you scratch theirs.
Right. I mean, because yeah, just think about the abuse like they usually get. If you're, I'm talking specifically about store owners right now. They're always getting abused. People trying to trying to undercut them, not understanding the cost of overhead and all that kind of stuff. So you cut them a break. You make sure you're going to pay and be okay with paying a little over market value. I've had this straight up conversation with him. I said, I am willing to spend 10% above market value because you have it in your store and I have all this other stuff. But once you start getting to 30% above market value,
Yeah.
I got to wait. And I'm just going to tell you. And then he flat out
Right.
told me, it's like, all right, when you have that feeling, just talk to me and we'll see what we can work out. Okay. And that we had that conversation. So I want to backtrack for just a second and go Whale of a Time Gaming. Whale of a Time Retro. That's what it is on YouTube. Make sure you check him out. He's just starting up his channel. Give him a like and a subscribe. He's great. He's uploading his stuff. He's coming back. He did some stuff back in the day and now he's coming back and starting up a channel, but he's also going to be somebody who's going to be involved with some of these retro talks in the future. But anyways, Whale of a Time Gaming, or Whale of a Time Retro, I think is what he is.
Yeah.
So, yep. So check him out. All right. So Wolfman, what else do you
Yes.
got? We working down the list?
Yeah, we could work down the list here. So, I mean, typically, Dan, you talked about trading, we talked about bartering and
Yeah.
stuff. And, you got to make sure that if you're at a store and somebody owns a mom and pop store, that you don't insult the person. They have a game, it's $20, and you say, hey, will you take 8 for this? I mean, that's a great way to make an enemy really quick. So you have to know when you could barter or haggle. And typically brick and mortar stores, it's way tougher to do that. You really need to have a pulse on the person before you could start doing that. Now, flea markets, estate sales, any of that stuff, man, go ham.
Yep.
Haggle, barter, insult. Who cares?
Even eBay, you can do that on eBay too. If they give you an option to offer something, sometimes they'll have the like limit that they won't let you offer below. They'll just say nope,
Right.
immediately decline, but not all the time. So my first shot usually on something, I'll throw out like a ridiculous offer on something, and every once in a while it pops up and then they might say no or whatever, but then that's when you start the process. And then I've done it before where I've gotten it for like 55% of what they were actually asking, because they had it for so long. They were just happy to get rid of it and get some money for it because it's been sitting there, right? So don't be afraid to ask. But yeah, the mom and pop shops, just so you understand, like their margins are low, like
Yep.
low. If you really start breaking it down, like just think about it. Here in my state, Washington, we're like top 5 for cost of living in the nation, right? It's crazy. So you got to think minimum wage here is getting up to like just under $19 an hour here. So it's freaking crazy. So you got to understand, if they have 3 employees that's working there at the time that they're there, that's a lot of money that they're spending. Oh, and by the way, they're paying for their building, they're paying for the internet, they're paying for their point of sale system, they're paying for all of those things. So you got to be like Wolfman was saying, respectful in your offers. Like for me, the way that I work it is, I won't just like try and get a deal on one game. I will start talking deals when I'm talking 2 or 3 games that I'm trying to purchase at one time. Hey, I'm going to get this game, and this game. What do you think about doing this for all of them? Because then it might be a little less for each individual game, but it's still a good sum of money for these 3 games. And then
Yep.
usually you have a better response because you're not just trying to get one and done and get out of there. So just a hint for dealing with that. It also helps with the networking portion of it too, right?
Oh,
Because then you
definitely.
never know. Even the employees that are there, they're looking too. Most of the time, they're gamers, and then they see you buddy with the owner, and then they're like, oh, you know what? This guy's actually kind of cool, and then you can become friends with them too. It just then you have more people looking out for you, and then you're looking out for them too, because you're trying to keep them employed. You're trying to keep them in business, right?
Sure.
So, and you get what you get, and most of the time, you're not going to have to deal with like fake games or systems in that situation either, because you can physically touch them. So it's just another thing to think about.
That's a really interesting point that you brought up, right? So when you go to the stores, you can inspect the games, you hold them physically, and you've been around the game long enough, Dan, and so have I, where we could spot reproductions.
Yeah.
Not everybody can. So when you're buying on eBay and stuff, you're taking a chance that the game is legitimate. You don't have the opportunity to take the game apart, make sure that it's all original, chipsets in there and all that stuff. So it is taking a chance. Now, some eBay sellers will show you the game open and show you that it's legit, but you might find a game at a good price and you're taking a chance on that when you buy it online versus, like Dan was saying, if you go into a brick and mortar store, you're holding the game in your hand. You could ask to take it open. For example, if I was buying a game like Earthbound and
Oh,
I went to a brick and mortar store, if I'm shelling $400 out for a loose cart, you bet I'm opening it up and I'm making sure it's a legitimate game and not a reproduction.
yeah, I for real. Like that's a big thing too. When you're talking about peripherals as well, that's another. So there's a couple of things I'll just help us. I'm gonna keep this kind of short, but I'm gonna help some of you that are a little bit newer. All you need to do is ask to hold a few games. Like just have them, and it could be cheap, but you know they're authentic games. Just holding the games in your hands, you'll be able to feel the difference on some of the stuff.
Mhm.
I'm specifically speaking about Super Nintendo. N64 is totally different because those games, some of those cartridges are super heavy. So you can't really compare Super Nintendo or N64 carts that way, but you'll feel the texture of the plastic's different. The weight of this game is different. You turn them over, you can see like the screws are going to be different. So these are just little things that you can just quickly glance at and know. Now, if you're at an estate sale or something like that, you can sometimes see some of that, but usually they'll sell them to you for cheaper, so it's sometimes worth the risk rather
Yeah.
than messing around with it. But yeah, no, it's kind of a the more you have, the more you feel. It's kind of like how banks teach tellers to spot counterfeit, right? They don't ever touch counterfeit money. So when they grab money and it feels weird, they know it immediately. So they never are allowed to touch it. It's kind of the same thing. When you've only touched authentic stuff, you'll feel when it's not authentic. Also, another thing that I want to say is the the whole concept of it being like an actual authentic cartridge. You I like personally, and I catch kind of some weird looks when I say this. If I'm buying newer games, I'm going to tell you specific systems that I do: Super Nintendo, Genesis, um, PlayStation 2, GameCube, and regular Xbox, OG Xbox. Those specific games, I try and buy rentals. I just do. Rental copies are the likelihood of them being fakes are huge, but also I'm a nerd. I like to think about the history, like how many times had this game been rented, as long as it works and it still has a good
Yeah.
sticker, I still have a certain criteria that I want, but it's just the history of it. When I hold it and it says Hollywood Video or Blockbuster on it, it's just like you start thinking about all the fun that kids had with this game, right? And it takes on a different life. This is just for me. But again, I'm not somebody who buys to collect and sell. Usually those are worth less, when if you were to try and resell them. But to me, they're worth more because of what it unlocks memory wise.
Hmm.
So, anyways, that's it. Sidetrack a little bit, but that's just how I roll. Dantron derailed.
No, that's great. And something that we didn't even talk about, we mentioned about networking and sending friends lists, but you could put out if there's a real like specific game that you want, and I'm trying to think of an example, like you've been looking for Marvel vs. Capcom 2 for Dreamcast and you can't
Hmm.
find it anywhere. You could post bounties. You could go to like Facebook Marketplace and you could say, I am looking for Marvel vs. Capcom 2. Oh, there it is in the flesh for Dreamcast. Willing to pay, and then you could post, probably if you're posting a bounty, you're willing to pay over market price to have somebody um, answer your ad and give you the game that you want. But that could be a way that you could get games that you're missing, or if you're close to completing a set, if you're interested in that, bounties could be really big, especially on forums. If you're part of a forum that is like, for example, I used to be part of a TurboGrafx 16 forum
Hmm.
too. That's where I made a lot of trades and
Tears.
yes, got a lot of the games that I used to have back in the day on that system because I almost never see them in the wild ever. So I remember posting bounties on the forum. Hey, looking for, Bonk 3. Um, if you have it, hit me up, willing to pay, this. And, people that are willing to part with their stuff will hit you up. And you can definitely check some things off your list by posting bounties.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of people looking out for others. So bounties are a good way to get those games that you're looking for that are a lot rarer than some of the
Yeah,
other ones, right? If you've been looking around, you just can't find it, and you're not willing to do an eBay price on it, then
right.
bounty it. But you just know there's less checks and balances than even on eBay, because eBay you can get your money back if you really fight them. Whereas sometimes bounties you might not. It might be a little bit kind of little more,
It's true.
back alley, shady kind of
Hmm.
PayPal me and hope that it shows up. So, anyways, but
Hmm.
networking sometimes that's what needs to happen. Um, so for the last thing, I think we should talk about Wolfman and spend a little bit
Yeah.
of time on is really like condition, like what do these terms mean, right? When we're talking about buying certain games. So why don't you go ahead
Okay.
and start off that conversation, Wolf?
Okay, so I don't know if I'm the person to do this with. I am very picky, almost overall with my games. I um, condition means a lot to me. Um, I want a game that has a good label. I don't want it to look like somebody put it through the blender.
Yeah,
I want to be able to read the title. I want to be able to see it on a shelf. And some collectors couldn't give two craps about that. Does the game play? Great. I don't care what the conditions like. So it depends on where you fall as a collector. But I will say that in this crazy hobby, condition does dictate price. So, the difference between, a fair condition game and a mint condition game where the game looks unused, it's in perfect condition, that price is going to be way higher than the game that's in fair condition with like FU on it and stickers and bubble gum and a
yeah,
booger. And
yeah.
it's you're not going to get the same value for it as so condition. And it's such a great thing that you brought up, does play a huge role, fortunately or unfortunately, in this hobby.
Which is it's weird too, because there's like what I've noticed is there's like three conditions really when it comes down to it. And believe it or not, the fair and poor condition kind of are about the same.
Hmm.
Now I'm going to tell you, number one's going to be mint, right? When people are talking about a mint condition game, fill in the blank. That's going to be
Right.
number one. Then what I've seen, remember, because I'm a weird one, that I look for rental copies. I'm going to tell you, rental copies in good condition with the sticker still in good condition, they're going to be the second most expensive, and I don't know why they're doing that. I think that it's weaponized nostalgia. I think that's what it is. They're like, so they know
Okay.
there are people like me that are like, that makes it even rarer for it to actually gone through as a rental and still be in good enough condition that somebody would. So I've seen those go for more as well. So which is sad, but I mean, I understand it. I mean, it is what it is. So, but yeah, that's what I got for that. So, Wolfman, what are we talking about as far as like just buying a game? Let's just talk loose. What does
Yeah.
loose mean to you?
Yeah. So loose to me means that you're just getting the game, right? So I have that perfect, right. So Dan is holding a Super Mario Legend of the Seven Stars, Super Mario RPG for Super Nintendo. It is what we consider a loose copy. So you look that up on game charting, you look it up on Game Eye. That is the price that Dan's holding for the game for a loose copy.
Mm-hmm.
Now, everything goes up now depending on now, does Dan have the manual that went with it? Now he has the game and manual. So that would be considered CI, okay? Cart and instruction manual,
Example, I
okay?
brought some examples for us. So
Well, this is great.
CI is something that you're going to see not as often, but it needs to be shown more often because I think people are being dishonest a lot of times. So
Mhm.
CI. So this is case, instruction manual, and game, right? Now, Wolfman, why is this not CIB?
So so that's not CIB because even though the manual is in there, when a game came out, it had other kind of inserts and stuff in there that would make it more complete to give you the CIB status of complete complete inbox. So CIB stands for complete inbox, whereas like maybe CI might just be case and instruction manual. Maybe it doesn't have the game. Look, see the stuff behind that? Warranty card, inserts, maps, codes, like all that stuff. That's pretty huge.
That is what I consider CIB. This would be considered to me CIB. Now, the
Right.
problem is when you're getting into this hobby, you're going to run into a lot of people selling stuff as CIB like this with the manual and the box, and that's it. All right. So for instance, I'll give you another instance. CIB. Is this CIB? Well, I mean, it's in a box, right? Super Nintendo game. It's in a box. No manual, but there's the game in there. The game looks like it's in good shape, right? So we got this game, and we have ActRaiser, and we have this case, right? So you'll see people, oh, CIB collector's case. No, you know what makes that CIB? When you actually have this with it. Let me get it to pop out of here. When you actually have this, now, is it just CI? I'm getting all faded out here. Is it just CI or is it CIB? So let me send this back. What makes it CIB? Uh-oh. Oh my gosh, this freaking thing is killing me. Hang on, let me figure out what's going on here. We do it live. Let me do this.
Yep. One take here at Retro
All right.
Law. Oh,
Okay.
there we go.
Let's see if that helps a little bit. Keep me in focus. All right, there we go. That's a little better. All right. So this thing spun because I freaking punched it right with my face. Okay. So this is what makes it CIB. So there's a box, but then what's behind this box? Like Wolfman just said, all of this other stuff, all of these other small, map, insert, warranty cards, the control or the actual booklet. That's what makes it CIB, not just the fact that it's in a freaking box. So pay attention to that, because that's what gets my dander up. Is people will sell stuff as CIB and they'll ask CIB pricing, and then you don't get the warranty card. Now for me, I don't necessarily need the warranty card. I'm just a person that likes the manual and all that kind of stuff. But if I'm going to buy CIB, I want all of it. Don't sell me. So you don't be charging me CIB when you're missing warranty cards, maps, all that other kind of stuff. And you're going to run into that when you're doing this collecting journey. So I just want you to protect yourself. So if they sell it like that, that does not mean it's CIB.
Yeah, and that's a great. So another great example would be the Legend of Zelda for Nintendo for the NES. If you have the box and you got the styrofoam thing at the bottom, and you got the game, and you got the manual, I don't consider that complete in box, because the Legend of Zelda had a big fold out map of Hyrule. And to me, that is paramount for that being a complete item.
Yep.
And you'll see so many people on eBay say, oh, I got a Legend of Zelda CIB. And then you go and you look and you see the map's not there. And to me, that's absurd. It's crazy. And if you look at the people that do have the map, you can see that they're definitely charging more too.
Yeah.
CIB that they're touting that they have. But if you have the map with the manual and the game and the box, and it's in good shape, you could, and the warranty card and any of the other inserts, you could fetch a premium. And that makes it to me more complete.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. That's the biggest one. Like, for instance, you got Rocket Knight here, right? So Rocket Knight, you can get it with just the booklet, but it actually came with something else that for a CIB, you need to have this secondary fold out that comes with it. See, and there's other cool warranty card right in there. So that's actual legit CIB stuff. So just look out for yourself. Now let's talk about something else really quickly too, Wolfman. Let's go into
Yeah.
a couple of little weird things before we cut this. So I'm going to talk about limited edition stuff. So when you start talking about limited edition CIB, so this is my Star Tropics. This is just CIB. I love this game. That's why I had to get a CIB. It has all the other fun stuff in it. But let's start talking about some limited edition stuff like this. The Gears of War original metal case. You'll find people that'll charge quite a bit for this sometimes, and they'll say, "Oh, CIB," and you'll open it up, and it'll Wolfman. You can tell I bought this one, right? Because I put the sticker on it. But
Yeah.
so when you look inside, for it to actually be CIB, right? For them to be charging you, and these are the things you got to look for. So do your research before you go, so you know what to look for, what should
Yeah.
be in there. So right, so you get this like weird kind of paper CD case. You got the 2 CDs, but then you got some other stuff in here too. You got like a cool book in here.
Is that an art book?
Yep, an art book. You got the Gears of War book. Oh, you even got the receipt from GameStop when I bought it. That's not CIB. That's just how I do it. The booklet. But then even like this kind of stuff. So people, when they're getting into limited edition stuff, these are the things that are going to drive up the price if you have them. Like that. The actual marketed, targeted, like Gears of War promotional stuff. Like this free Xbox Live for 48 hours or whatever it is. You won't find that a lot of times, but those are the ones that if you really want CIB, those are the things you're gonna be looking for. What about you, Wolfman? What you
Yeah.
got?
So Dan, I'm glad you brought up like all the stuff like what is CIB, what is complete in case, what's game and manual, like all that stuff. So back to the beginning here, you have to determine what type of collector you are, because I can tell you right now, I have a complete NES set, but it is loose games only. I have probably 50 or 60 games with boxes. I probably have 150, 200 manuals, but you need to be like mega buck rich to try to have or try to attain a complete in-box NES collection. So
Cool.
you have to determine how you're collecting your games, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want just games, or do you have to have the manual? Do you not care? So all of this stuff goes back to the very beginning of this episode, where you have to determine what's important to you and what type of collector you're going to be.
Dude, what's this going rate for stadium events right now? Boxed.
Was it 20? Is it over $20,000?
Over 20 grand. Like
Yeah,
I think 25 is closer to where it is.
yeah.
I've seen them. I've seen them as expensive as 35.
Okay.
Recently. So, and then there's other games that are, that's a ridiculous game. That's probably the main game that people try to go for. That's the one sticking point. Then another one's Little Samson. So that one itself is going to be loose $2,500 or so for
Yep.
one NES game, just loose.
Yep.
So you gotta be willing to understand, like some of these games, if you're going for complete sets, they're going to be spendy. So just keep that in mind.
Definitely.
Now,
Wow.
yeah, isn't that crazy? So here's last one that I'm going to touch on too is because I'm a peripheral whore, so I'm a hardware guy. We've been talking about games the whole time, but what if you're going to be the type of collector like me or my buddy Winbush, who likes controllers? He just that's his big thing. That's his deal is controllers. I'm that way too. So are you going to start looking and hunting around for things like your TurboGrafx, turbo stick? Are you going to start looking around for things like a boxed Japanese, Sega Saturn gun? Are you gonna be
Nice.
so if you're looking for stuff like that, that's a whole other realm that you're gonna get into that is just insane. The one thing I want to bring up though is you still need to do your research. For instance,
Yeah.
so for Dreamcast, this is the best Dreamcast gun. It just is. This is the Mad Catz Dreamcast. I don't know, it's called like Astro Blaster or something like that. But this is the Dreamcast gun you want to have in North America, because I have 2 of these and they're freaking awesome. These are the official Sega Dreamcast, light guns released in Japan. So the reason why I say do your research is these are hardware coded for Japanese play. You try to use this in an American console, this specific gun is just an example, will not work. Yes, it's got the same plugin. It absolutely will not work for light guns in on a US or a North American console because they hard coded it because sadly that was right around the time of Columbine and they didn't want any of that heat. They wanted none of that smoke. And so I understand it. But you'll see these and they'll be like, oh, these are awesome. And you'll see them on eBay or you'll see them out and about and you'll be like, oh man, it's, you know, $65, $70. All right, cool. If you don't know better, then you get it home and you go, this gun doesn't work. Well, no, it does work, but it never was going to work in your North American console. So just, again, more information for you. Like if you're going down the rabbit hole of hardware, make sure that the hardware is going to actually do what you want it to do. Same thing with light guns. You got to understand if it's not going to work on a modern TV, you got to have a 50 or 60 hertz CRT, not a 100 hertz high definition CRT. It will not work. How do I know? I've lived that life. You can search it up.
Yeah.
So there are some high definition CRTs that are awesome, but you try and play a light gun game on it, it ain't gonna work. So again, it takes hardware, takes a lot more forethought in looking at it. Games, you already know it's just gonna work, right? If the game's good, it's just gonna work. Hardware's a little bit different. So that's another realm of collecting if you're gonna go into hardware or if you're gonna go into, you know, just the software portion.
That's a mistake I made, Dan. I told a friend, his name is Eric. Eric, I forget what his what's his new backlog.
Oh, Backlog Arcade with Eric?
Yes, backlog arcade with Eric. I told him about a game called Terranigma, which is an RPG that came out in Europe. Well, I wanted to play that. So I was stupid. And this was before I became more and more knowledgeable. But in the very beginning of collecting, I wanted a Super Famicom. And I found one, Super Famicom. I found a Terranigma cart. I got it here. I was so excited, couldn't get it to work. It had a different AC connector. It came with a Europe. And, you know, we're talking about years ago. So, like, I couldn't.
It was a PAL setup.
Exactly. Yeah. It was PAL. And I made so many stupid moves, and then it had to have a TV, like you said.
That was a PAL TV.
50, yes. So basically, long story short, I wasted all that money, and I sold it, and I lost money on it because I wasn't able to play it because I didn't do my research.
Yeah, and this is why we're doing this episode, you know, just so you guys can know, like, you have somebody out there. Like, you can also post up questions and stuff on here if you want to get a hold of us. I mean, we're busy, we got lives and stuff, but you know, post your questions. It's fine. We're all just gamers. Like, if you find somebody that you trust that you can ask a question for, look, I'm going to give you advice not to benefit myself. I'm just going to look at you straight and tell you that. That's not how I roll. If you got an opportunity to buy something and it's like really a good deal, I'm like, dude, pick that up. Or nope, don't do that. Right? So find somebody that's like my Wolfman that I can call and bounce ideas off of. Find someone that you can do that with. Don't
they do it to you? I was away in Georgia. I still texted you, and I'm like,
you do, and I love it.
I'm knowledgeable,
love it.
But my knowledge only goes so far. If I'm buying a peripheral, I go to the main man himself, Mr. Peripheral, and I asked him at a convention, is this a good deal for GameCube controllers? I sent him pictures because his opinion is paramount to me, and he's way more knowledgeable than me when it comes to that sort of thing. So even though I've been in the game for 30 plus years, I still ask questions and I still get advice on things that I don't know. I don't know everything. You're never going to know everything. And it's important, like you said, Dan, anybody listening to the show could find you. They could post in the comment section questions that they have, and we could definitely, try to answer all those inquiries.
Yep. Now, the last subset that I'm going to touch on, this will be the end before I let Wolfman have his final thoughts. The last subset is video game related promo art. I know some people that are into that stuff too. Standees, things like that. So same concept. You just got to know what you're looking for. There's a lot of fakes and stuff out there. So just again, do your research when it comes to that, because these are a little more niche. Like you're talking peripherals and like promo art and special editions. You really have to do your research on that kind of stuff, because there was far less available out there. So, but that means you should be able to find some good information on it, because there was so few of them and people have asked those questions before. Just take a moment, check it out. Like, and it could be anything. It could be specialty plushies. It could be, Funko Land limited edition stuff. It could be, standees, like I said. It could all kinds of stuff, kiosks, all that. I mean, because that's, just so you know, I'm going to end up going down that route someday, is buying some kiosks. There's like 3 or 4 that I want. But again, you got to do your research, because those things are freaking expensive themselves. And you got to kind of be like me on some of these older hardware things. You got to know how to kind of work on them a little bit, because
Mhm.
just so you know, some of the things are, like 30 years old now, and they're going to need some love and some TLC. And if you have somebody that you can send them to have them worked on, great. But if you can do some of that stuff yourself, like for me, cleaning games, freaking awesome. Like I'll get a game, they can't get it to work. They'll knock off another like $10 off the game. I get it home. I take 10 minutes, clean it up, open it, works perfect. All right, cool. I can do that because I have that knowledge. So if it's something that you feel like doing or getting into, my suggestion when it comes to this is the last thing that I'm going to talk about. If you want to take care of your stuff, like a game specifically, like let's just say you want to learn how to clean Super Nintendo and Genesis games. Those are the easiest ones to start off with.
Mhm.
Buy a couple cheap ones that you're not worried about damaging and open them up. Just open them up, look at it, see what you think. And then so you can see know what to expect, and you don't have to worry about damaging, a $300, Splatterhouse 3 cartridge, opening it up for the first time. You know what I'm saying? So, anyways, I'm just saying, it's like there's ways to go about it. You're smart. You're smarter than sometimes you think you are. So take your time and just do it. Figure it out. And you'll be a lot happier with it, because you'll be able to get games. You'll be like, oh man, this game don't work, and then you'll be like, oh, you get it, and you go, oh, it's worked just fine. So, anyways,
Mhm.
that's what I got. Wolfman, close us out, buddy.
Yeah, so a final thought is this. I mean, not and this goes to real world implications too. Not everybody is nice, and not everybody is looking out for your best interest. And there are people that will sell sealed games and they are completely resealed, and they're trying to get sealed prices for them. And you need to know what you're looking for. There's certain ways trifold seals up top. Like there's certain games and systems that put out their sealed games have certain ways that they sealed it, and there's ways to determine if somebody resealed stuff. But there's a lot of shysters in this industry. Unfortunately, there's a lot of people that try to take advantage of novice people getting into the hobby, and it goes back to what we said: ask questions, take pictures, do your research, don't be a victim. There's people you can absolutely reach out to and get some help, because for every 8 people that are good in this hobby, there's 2 that aren't. And I've seen it firsthand through the years. And they're out there and they're preying on you not having that knowledge, so they could take advantage of you. Um, Geez, I'm thinking of Game Boy Advance carts. Those little carts.
Yeah,
There's so many Pokemon
that's the biggest.
fraudulent
Yep, that's the biggest
carts.
one.
My
Pokemon.
God,
There's
is
so
that a
many
big
fraudulent
one?
Pokemon cards for
Oh,
for Advance.
like Pokemon Emerald. Like you know how many
Yep,
like
Fire Red. Yep.
yeah, like, but there's ways to tell if it's fake or not, or if somebody's lying to you, and you just have to put a little bit of time and reading and effort and research into things, and you'll be fine. It's a fun hobby. It's great. Make sure you know what type of reason you're into the hobby for. Hopefully, you're in it for the same reason as Dan and myself, that you're a gamer at heart and that you love playing the games, and they're not just going to sit on a shelf, and you're not, watching some, retro stock ticker hoping that your game is going to go up, 20% in the next couple months. That's not what it's about.
But
Yet
there is
there's
a
people that do.
yeah, but there is a place for that. If you do want to do
Yeah,
that, that's fine. Like we're not telling you that like one way is different than the other, and what you can only. That's the great thing about gaming. Gaming is for everybody. Now, the trade-off though is, and I don't even like the name true gamers, because that's what it, if it is a heart thing that you're doing, that's more of what I would call a gamer. If you're using it as an investment property, that's more of like a, I would say it's it's more transactional, which is fine. Again, if you're going to go that way, that's, I don't want to discourage anybody. If that's how you want to do it, that's fine. Just understand what you're doing to the market when you do that, for
Mhm.
those that do want it. So, which is,
Yeah,
again, it's your stuff, it's your
great
prerogative.
point.
I don't want to tell you one way or another. If it's worth it for me, I will buy it. If it's not, I'm not going to. That's it. But I will do the research on it. So I'm telling everybody else in here, if there's something that you absolutely want, like I'm still looking for my Earthbound. I've had it in the past, got rid of it, kicked myself in the butt for it, but I'm not spending $400 on it. I'm not
Yeah,
spending $300 on it. So it's one of those things, like if the right time and place, it's going to happen. But guess what?
right,
If it gets, another 10 years down the road and the price does not drop, I got to really start thinking, do I really want this game? And if I do, I'm going to have to be willing to pony up for it, because this is what it is now. So, I mean, like I kick myself now for not getting an N64 DD. I'm going to get one at some point. I'm just telling everybody there. I had a chance to get one when it was $500. It was probably like 15 years ago at that point. Now it's
Ooh.
$2,500
Whoa,
minimum, minimum,
oh my
loose.
god,
So it's one of those things like, all right, well, this is the market as it is. I'm going to wait and see if it drops back down to 1,500. But if I see it at 15, 16, 1,700, is it something that I'm going to pull the trigger on? I mean, that's up to you. I'm not telling you how to spend your money. So, but
right,
that's the one thing is like, we just want to help you. If you want to get into it, again, just do some research, reach out to friends, know your budget, and then, like Wolfman said, the big thing for me is pick the games, what kind of collector you're going to be, pick the system that you want to collect for, and just work through it methodically. Don't try and overextend yourself at the beginning, because especially right now
right,
in this market, it's gonna eat your lunch. Unless you have
yeah,
the money. If you got the money and you're driving a Lambo or something, who am I to say don't buy that game?
yeah,
Get
right.
whatever you
Go
want.
at it, go
These are
ham.
this is for some of the people that are like, you know what, I got a family, I'm just buying a house, and so that's what a lot of this is for. Things to look for. But even those that have a Lamborghini, they want to save money too. That's why they got a Lamborghini. You know what I'm saying? But anyways, this is
There's no doubt.
that's how I want to leave it.
Yeah, that's great. I mean, I don't have anything other to say than it's a passion. I love it. It's awesome. But I could say that the hobby has changed a lot in the last 15 years,
Yeah.
without question. I think it's harder for somebody that's coming into the hobby now than it was 15 years ago, but there's still plenty out there. You could still find games. Hopefully, a lot of the big AAA titles. You could get your Mario 2s and Mario 3s for NES. I mean, they're out there. You know, um, it's all these niche kind of limited print titles that become harder to get, but that's not really for the novice collector anyway. The person that's getting in, they
Yep.
probably want all the games that they remember, the big titles when
Yep.
they were kids. So
And the last thing that I'm going to leave you with is disc-based media. Just quickly, um, play the game before you buy it. And if you're buying it online, first thing you do is you got to pop it in. If it doesn't work, return that stuff, because there is a thing called disc rot. The games that get scratched up too much, you'll never be able to play them. All that kind of stuff, especially for more expensive games. My threshold is usually right around $50. Once you hit that $50 threshold and the game doesn't work, it's like, nope, I'm returning it or doing something. If I got a game for $20 and it has a good case, it's a good CD case, but the CD doesn't work, I'm not necessarily going to return it. I'm going to take it to one of my buddy's shop and I'm going to have him like resurface it and see if we can get it working. 9 times out of 10, I can get it working. So it's just one of those things. Like disc-based media is a beast in itself. I will tell you, I will tell you the probably the most forgiving disc-based media out there is GameCube. GameCube, I've seen GameCube games that just look like they were used as like a coaster or a frisbee, all scratched,
Yeah.
and they will still work. So those are the ones that the DVD, mini DVD based media just tends to work really good. I will say even the DVD PlayStation 2, if your PlayStation 2 is in good shape, those ones tend to work really, really well.
Yeah.
But some of the other ones like Sega Saturn in particular, Sega CD, some of those ones they're getting to the point to where you really got to make sure. And some of those games are wicked expensive. Like I
Did you
just
say
saw,
Saturn?
dude, Saturn. Yeah, Saturn is one of those. So Saturn in particular, but like for instance, there's games out there for Saturn that are ridiculously expensive. I was looking at one a couple months ago. It was an X it was a Mega Man X and collection or something like that on Sega Saturn.
Yeah.
It was $800. That's when I'm going to make sure that it's going to play before I order it. You know what I'm saying? Or I purchase it.
Right.
So just an example, disc-based media, something to think about. And that's all I got.
Yeah, and just a side note with that, if you're interested in what Dan's talking about, there's another law episode that we did called preservation, and there's ways to enjoy this hobby where you could get real hardware and go about it, with the emulation route, where you could play all these games and play it on real, hardware using real controllers and stuff. And honestly, I have, the Dan has gotten me the bug, and I have a few systems, that are like that because, those lasers are going to go, and they're not always going to read discs. And then you're stuck with, a system that can't read games, which means you can't play them. And that's just the reality. So you need to know how to change out that laser, or you better start thinking about how you're going to preserve this stuff that's not going to be working in the next 10 to 20 years,
No, that's
because
scary.
these parts are going to go.
Yep, scary concept. More moving parts, more stuff to wear out.
Yep.
Just look at pinball. Anyways, I
Yep.
want to just say this was a great talk, Wolfman. I think we're gonna have to do a supplemental. We'll bring a couple other people in and have them give their impressions. Some of our friends that are into the retro game collecting
Oh,
as well.
definitely.
Some newer, some older. I think that's gonna be a lot of fun. But I wanted to say thank you to you specifically, Wolfman, for doing this with me and sitting
Oh
down
my
and having
God.
this other
My
talk
pleasure.
because it's
Kidding
so much
me?
fun. Yeah.
So I could talk about this for the next 2 hours. I know we can't do that, but
It,
it's sitting down talking to a friend who's got a similar hobby, and it's no skin off my back. I love doing it. And just make sure you go to Dantron69K, give him a subscribe. He's on TikTok. He's on all sorts of mediums. And matter of fact, maybe you want to give the special announcement. What other forum
oh,
is this on?
yeah, so normally you guys know me. My big channel is the YouTube. It is. I'm on TikTok, I'm on Instagram, but I've just been requested by a few people to finally migrate over to Spotify. So you will be able to find these law episodes on Spotify as I get them uploaded. So you got to give me some time for that. But I do have my first video that was uploaded today. And yeah, if you
Yeah.
feel like listening to it in your car as you're rolling, you want to hear some crappy jokes or talking about some random game that you don't know, I mean, that's just the way that it's going to go. So it's got me available there now too. So if you
Yes.
guys feel like it, you can find me in a lot of places. But yeah, so just trying to make it easier for people that are like me, that are nerds that have a love for gaming and they just want to sit and hang out and hear somebody else that's just, I'm just a normal dude. I'm not trying to do this for anything like special. This is just like, I'm a nerd. I know there are other nerds out there that'll like to have some conversations with me. There's one right there sitting next to me. Um, my my girls love it. So and it's something that when I'm gone, at least there'll be a little piece of Dantron left. So anyways, that's just a little
Love it.
hint into the reason why I do this stuff. So anyways, until next time, y'all,
Yo,
later.
peace.